Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry. You can find us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin and at Dynasty_Dale. And we're going through our 2023 offseason recap. I apologize. My voice is a little scratchy today. I've got some allergies going on and it's just kind of whooping me a little bit here. So I'll try and fight through it, but please bear with me here. But yeah, we are going through our full recap for all 32 teams in the NFL. We've gone through 3 divisions. We're jumping on the last AFC division. If this is your first episode, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you stick around while you're here. If you can, just leave a like on the video, a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be putting out a lot more content all off season long. But yeah, it's been fun so far. We're going through all the changes that these teams have made, and we're going through the coaching changes, the guys that they cut, the guys that they added in free agency, the guys that they re-signed, the draft, and we're giving all of our thoughts on these teams as a whole at the very end of the podcast. So it's been a lot of fun so far. There's things that I've forgotten that this series has helped me to remember, but yeah, we're going. And how we doing today, Dale?
Hey, we are doing very, very well. I'm actually excited to talk about this upcoming division we got. Got a lot of pretty poor teams, but it has some teams that really have some fight in them, and there's definitely some things that we need to that we need that we need a little refresher on.
Yeah, for sure. And so today we're going to be going over the Houston Texans in the AFC South. Again, if we've got your team already and you're coming back, thank you guys so much. But if we haven't gotten to your team yet, we are going to be putting these out every single day for the entire month of July, and then one on August 1st. And then we're probably taking a break because August 2nd is my birthday. So I'm going to be off celebrating that. But that said, tomorrow is Dale's birthday. So make sure you guys, by the time that this comes out, it's already been Dale's birthday. But,
Yeah,
when we're recording. So Dale's going to have a good time tomorrow. But getting old. He's getting old. 45-year-old man.
yeah,
He looks pretty good for
I'm
45.
I'm trying my best. I'm really 30. It's before
Yeah.
he starts spreading lies against me. But
Yeah,
anyways,
exactly. So with the Houston Texans, really quickly, obviously they went through the whole coaching staff change this last
hmm
offseason, but I actually low-key think that this roster is going to be competitive. Like, it looks pretty decent. Now, it all comes down to the coaching staff and what they're going to be able to do at the top, but yeah, if you go back to the end of last year in the meaningless Week 17 game or Week 18 game against
18, yeah.
it was the Colts,
In
right?
Colts, yep,
Yeah, division
absolutely.
rivals. So the Houston Texans managed to pull out the win, therefore hurting themselves, also helping the Colts. It was just the funniest move.
It was
You got to
the
respect,
weirdest thing.
yeah, you got to respect Lovie Smith for giving the Bears one last, here you go, because it gave the
Right.
Bears the number 1 overall pick, got them the trade with Carolina, and yeah, it goes back to the end of it all, where the Houston Texans they take CJ Stroud number 2 overall, but then they have to trade back up in the first for the other guy that they wanted. It was just a crazy series of events, and you just wonder how that really played out, if they would have gone Bryce Young instead or what. But yeah, it's crazy to think about, but it's fun as well. So
Mhm.
all right, so new head coach Demeco Ryans comes over from San Francisco, the defensive coordinator. This is going to be interesting because you've got a defensive coordinator head coach or defensive-minded head coach, similar to what the Jets have done, and we've seen that with Robert Saleh the last couple years. I personally am not the biggest fan of defensive-minded head coaches, and the reason behind that is just because these guys, they have to have a good offensive coordinator, right? But when you're a good
Mhm.
offensive coordinator, eventually you're going to get poached to go be a head coach for another team. And then you've got to replace them with a new offensive coordinator. And it just you're not very often getting poached for a defensive coordinator, right? And when you're a defensive minded guy, it doesn't hurt as bad to lose those guys. So, um, yeah, I just think for the longevity of a team, offensively, you want to be more consistent year to year on that end, but it is what it is. So Demeco Ryans comes in as the head coach. He brings with him Bobby Slowick. He
Mhm.
was the former San Francisco passing coordinator for the team. I don't really know what all he was involved with because it's mostly Kyle Shanahan over there. But we saw good things from Mike McDaniel down in Miami, so maybe there's a little bit
Hmm.
more of opportunity there for Bobby Slowick, but it's hard to say right now, right? And then they also brought in Matt Burke to be the defensive coordinator, but again, it's mostly going to be Demeco Ryans. So, what are your thoughts about this coaching staff?
Yeah, I really thought it was a good head coaching hire. I really like Demeco Ryans, and I think for the first time in a long time that the Texans made a good front office change. Um, well, in their coaching staff, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it was horrible of them getting Lovey Smith, but unfortunately, it was their second head coach in a row that was a lame duck
Right.
head coach, and that's not good for your overall team morale because you're getting to
Right.
know this guy, and then he's out of a job. So,
Right. Right.
I really think these defensive coaches can be valuable in that they can hopefully bring more of a team outlook instead of an offensive outlook on
Right.
on their team.
Yep.
More like a Mike Tomlin kind of
Yeah,
vibe.
they can build a good
Yeah.
culture, right? That's kind of
Yes.
what we've
Yes.
seen with a lot of
Yes.
these defensive guys. You almost want them as the backbone, but because
Yep.
they can really make a team come together. But it just sucks
Yes.
because it works well if you can be like who is the team that always loses their OC? I forget. I had it in my mind, but it just slipped out. But there's a team they constantly lose their offensive coordinator, right? And they just continue to replace that year in and year out. So
Hmm.
it is definitely possible, but it's just more difficult. And that's where
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta be a little sharper, and it's just a little
Yeah.
scary, I guess,
Absolutely.
right? So
Yeah, yeah. But I think with as a head coaching position, I think Ryan's is great.
mhm.
I'm a little worried about Bobby Slowick. I don't know how good he is. I'll be very honest.
Right. This is his first time as offensive coordinator.
Yes, as coordinator.
So we'll see what he can
Yes.
do. But yeah, there's really not much to say about him for now. We're just going to have to watch. I expect for the most part, it's probably going to be a lot like San Francisco, kind of the
Hmm.
run heavy with the play action passes and, not putting everything on CJ Stroud's shoulders right
Yeah.
away. Right. So
Yep.
it should be,
Absolutely.
I think it'll be really good for CJ Stroud, but we'll talk about him here in just.
Hmm.
All right, so a few players that they added or re-signed this offseason. They brought in Shaquille Griffin, cornerback from Jacksonville. Tavir Thomas, another cornerback that they re-signed. Darius Phillips, they brought in from Denver. A couple defensive linemen. Chase Winovich, they brought over from Cleveland. Defensive end there. Sheldon Rankins, defensive tackle from the Jets. Hassan Ridgeway from the Niners, another DT. They brought in Byron Cowart, defensive tackle out of KC, fullback Andrew Beck from Denver, Jimmy Ward. This was a good signing by them, low-key. They sniped him away from the Niners. He followed Demeco Ryans over here. Offensive guard Michael Dieter. This was low-key kind of a good signing as well. Just a good, solid depth piece. Guard from
Hmm.
Miami last year. Denzel Perryman, interior linebacker from the Raiders. Corey Littleton from Carolina. They re-signed Neville Hewitt and Jake Martin from Denver. These are all linebackers. Derek Rivers, they re-signed him as well. Brought in Case Keenum to be the backup kind of
Hmm.
mentor to CJ Stroud. Signed running back Mike Boone. They brought in Devin Singletary on a one-year contract from Buffalo. Offensive tackle Greg Little from Miami. Dalton Schultz, they gave him a one-year deal. Dalton Schultz was the Cowboys tight end last year.
Hmm.
They also brought in wide receiver Robert Woods. Now, this is a fairly good signing, in my opinion. Did they trade for him or did they sign him?
They signed him.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just want to make sure. Steven Sims Jr., they brought him in, another wide receiver there, and then Noah Brown. So some good names. This is like the third year
Yeah.
in a row, though, that they've really flipped a lot of their roster, and it does make you a little nervous. That means that they haven't really found that nucleus to kind of hold things together, but they did get rid of like guys like Brandon Cooks this last offseason. So
Hmm.
it's interesting, but the names that they brought in, I do like them quite a bit. I think that they have a lot of potential of leadership as well
Yep.
as experience, right?
Yep. Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and I don't find it super, like, it can be alarming when teams turn over like this, but it's with a team that's been in this much turmoil for the past half decade,
Hmm.
at least. I don't think it's a horrible thing because you just need people who are going to be adults in the room.
Right.
Um,
Believers of the
you
mission,
know
right?
yes, yes, and that's why I think, like the Case Keenum signing is really good. Another one is Robert Woods is good, which I mean, I'm not sure how much good he's going to be on the field,
Right.
but in the locker room, I think he could be a really good guy.
Yeah,
Um,
for
you
sure.
know, and stuff like that. Like same with Noah Brown. I think he's a good guy, and they really got a lot of decent pieces there that aren't that are older but aren't super young, or that aren't past their prime.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So now it's all kind of gonna boil down to Chase Young, Chase Young with the Washington Commanders. Chase Young,
Right.
CJ Stroud. It's all gonna be on his
Yeah.
shoulders, right? Whether he
Yes, it
can
will be.
really develop and be what you and I both really like him, but
Mm.
there's a lot of pressure on him. So we'll see if he can kind of live up to that. Now, a few guys that they did let go this last offseason. So you had cornerback Trayman Smith. You had Ogbaninia Okoronkwo, defensive end. Rasheem Green, another DE. Defensive tackle Taylor Stalwart. Justin McCray, a guard. Um, Linebacker Jalen Reeves Mabin. Quarterbacks Kyle Allen and Jeff Driscoll. Excuse me. Jonathan Owens, another safety. Jordan Atkins, OJ Howard, and Eric Tomlinson, a couple of tight ends that they let go. That's a lot of tight ends that they really kind of let go here. It's kind of surprising. Chris Moore and Philip Dorsett are a couple wide receivers that they let go. And a few guys that they've released that haven't been signed, so it's always possible that they bring these guys back when training camp kicks off here in just a couple weeks. Justin Britt, center. You have Mario Addison, a defensive end. AJ Kane, a guard. Jermaine Carter, linebacker. Blake Cashman, another linebacker. And then Kevin Pierre-Louis. These are all linebackers. EJ Perry
Mhm.
is a quarterback. I don't really think they'll bring him back. Rex Burkhead, Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman, man, I haven't heard that name in a while. What could have been on that
Right.
guy? Couple running backs. Darius Joyner, safety. I would not be shocked if they brought him back. He's a pretty good player. And at depth, I think he could be interesting. But then Drew Estrada, a wide receiver as well. So, there's a reason some of these guys haven't been signed. Like, for example, Rex Burkhead is 33 years old as a white running back.
Mhm. Yes.
You're up against it. We'll just put it that way.
Yes.
So, um, any major names with the guys that they let go?
Not really. I think it was all guys that were trimming the fat. I guess you could say it's not
Yeah,
really anything major. I mean, I mean, losing OJ Howard was not a big deal at
right,
all.
right.
I'll be very honest. And nobody was really a superstar here that they really needed or was being a contributing member to their team.
Yep, I'm with you. So then
So,
in the draft, in the first round, we talked about it. Number 2 overall, they take CJ Stroud.
mm,
Now, I low key, I'm not gonna lie. I think them winning that game saved their franchise because if they would have taken Bryce Young number 1 overall, I think that would have set them back so far. And again,
in speaking of that, I actually had a decent conversation on Twitter, which is surprising. Well, in this one person posted like, who would you rather have? It would be Bryce Young or CJ Stroud in Dynasty, and I
sure,
picked Stroud all day. It's because of precision, accuracy.
yeah,
And
the
I
traits,
yeah, yeah, I feel those traits are more beneficial than what Young could offer. And then there's a couple people saying that like um saying that Bryce Young has all these has the best pocket presence of any quarterback in the last decade. I had one guy saying that. I had some guys saying that Stroud isn't athletic. They see him as Jared Goff type, which
I'd rather
I
have
did
Jared
say
Goff than
that.
Bryce Young. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, I would too. And stuff like that. So, I actually had a felt like what was a decent conversation. Um, and then there's also people trying to say that like you can teach accuracy, but then I bring up, Tim Tebow and
Right. Yeah. No,
so
but no, for sure. I
yeah.
think CJ Stroud was a good signing. I
Yes,
think he was the
I
best
think it was.
quarterback in this class, and you got him at
I
2
agree.
instead of 1. So
Yes.
they did then trade up to number 3 overall, took linebacker Will Anderson out of Alabama. Now the stats guys hated this, but it is what it is. You can make up your own mind
Yeah.
on that. I
Yeah,
don't really
yeah,
care
yeah.
there.
I don't I think if they're bad this year, that's gonna make the biggest difference because
Right.
then they're gonna lose out on a top 10 pick.
Yeah, potentially.
So
Right.
yeah, that's the only issue I have.
Right. In round 2, they took Juice Scruggs, a center out of Penn State. In round 3, Nathaniel Dell, wide receiver out of Houston. What we'll talk
Calvin's
about.
favorite player,
We'll talk
his
about him
favorite
in a
player.
bit. He's a good
Yep.
player, but he's just limited size guy.
Yes. Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah,
Dylan
yeah.
Horton, defensive end in round 4 out of TCU. Henry Tuo, linebacker out of Alabama in the 5th round. Jarrett Patterson, center out of Notre Dame in 6. And then also Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver, one of the guys that I loved. I really wish he would have got more draft capital than this out of Iowa State in round 6.
Yeah.
And then Brandon Hill, safety out of Pittsburgh in round 7. So, we'll talk about CJ Stroud. We'll get into it a little bit here. But other than that, I didn't love the Nathaniel Dell, but I guess they went to CJ Stroud, and that's who he really likes. So,
Mhm.
you're trying to appease your new starting quarterback. So it is what it is. But this is like Patrick Mahomes taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round of that draft. Just because you want some doesn't mean you can't recommend other guys. But it is what it is, right? So
Yeah.
in terms of the actual roster now, so let's get into our dynasty thoughts here. Offensive line, it's still a pretty good group of players. They managed to keep Laramie Tunzel. There's all the trade rumors all offseason
Mhm.
long. So I think keeping him, bringing in Shaq Mason, like they have a pretty low key good offensive line. So I think that it's going to be able to keep the run game going pretty well, and it's also going to be able to keep the lanes open for CJ Stroud. That he's going to be able to
Mhm.
kind of again use that accuracy to pick apart some of these defenses. Now, quarterback wise, CJ Stroud, we both agree he's going to be the starter, right? Davis
Yep.
Mills, I don't think he's going to be able to hold him off.
There's no chance.
There's a chance that Davis Mills starts the season if they want to play those dumb games, but
I
I
don't
don't.
think that's gonna happen. I
I
don't
don't
think
think
that's
so
gonna happen.
either, but they
No.
might do that just to slow play Stroud a little bit, make sure he's
Right.
whatever all
Ready.
this
Yeah.
stupid games that they play. Case
Yep.
Keenum's there as well. Now CJ Stroud again, we both agree that he should have been the number 1 in this draft class
Yep.
over Bryce Young. And it's not a slight on Bryce Young. We like Bryce Young, but we just like CJ Stroud more, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
when you're talking about the measurables and all those things, I think CJ just brings more to the table than Bryce Young. Bryce Young might
Mhm.
be a genius, but you are still limited by those size factors. You can bulk up all you want, but you're still 5'9", my dude. So it just scares me a little bit. Now, I hope that he goes on to have a Hall of Fame career. I really do. And he can prove me wrong, but
Mhm.
I'm risk averse at betting on outliers, right? And that's just me
Right.
personally. So, again, I hope that Bryce Young is in the Hall of Fame someday. I hope he's going to kill it, but I also hope CJ Stroud is there as well. So that is what it is. Any last thoughts on CJ, or we'll just jump into the running backs?
Yeah, no, well, I'm very excited about Stroud. I know it's gonna be rocky year 1 because he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a lot of weapons,
True.
but but don't but don't let that deter you from either keeping for him or just even trying to trade for him. Because
Yeah.
sometimes guys get off of those players that have a less than stellar year 1.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was listening to a podcast that I really respect, and it was crazy to me that they were talking about CJ Stroud a little bit. And this is not to put them on blast or anything, but they were just talking about how they thought that value-wise, CJ Stroud already peaked at like quarterback 14. I'm like, man, I really think that we're being a little
Mm,
short-sighted. Joe Burrow's not a
Mhm.
mobile guy, and he's a top 10
Mm-mm. Mhm.
consistent pick, right? I think that that's
Yeah.
what CJ Stroud has the potential to be. And I was just
I
like,
I agree with that.
I
Yeah.
thought it was crazy that they're talking about Stroud already peaking. I was like, what are we doing here? That is just, that's wild. Because he's consistently the number 3 quarterback in rookie startups, right? Or like rookie drafts right now, which is,
Yes.
again, it's crazy to me. But
It is what it is.
all right, now let's jump into the running backs. Obviously, Dameon Pierce is the returning vet. Devin Singletary is on a 1-year deal. They also have Dare Ogunbowale, Jared Dokes, Mike Boone. I mean, I think it's going to be the 1-2 show with Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary. I
Yep.
actually put out a video earlier this offseason kind of talking about these two guys specifically. I think they're going to be the 1A and the 1B. The problem is they're both very good at the same things. And I think that
Mhm.
from a fantasy perspective, they're going to cannibalize each other a little bit in this season. I think they're both going to be top 24 running backs, just with the system and the opportunity and the talent of these two guys. But I don't think that one of them is going to be able to really break away over the other. Do you have any thoughts on these guys?
I agree with that. I mean, I would rather have Devin Singletary than Dameon Pierce.
Really? Even on a
And
1-year
it
deal?
well, it only because of draft price.
Fair.
That's the only thing. I do think Dameon Pierce is going to get more snaps, but I do think Devin Singletary is going to be used in all different kinds of ways.
Sure.
I mean, I understand it's a very small deal for them. I mean, it's only what, like $1.5 million
Yeah,
dollars. So
it's
like it's
small.
not it is not very much for a running back that I feel is worth more than that, in my opinion. And I think Devin Singletary is more talented than Dameon Pierce. That's just me.
I
That's my hot
disagree,
take.
but that we've talked
That's
about this
fine.
multiple times.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's perfectly fine. So,
yeah, but these
I think it's gonna be a struggle to really see who's going to be the lead
sure.
back
Yep.
in that offense.
Yeah, unless there's an injury, but Devin Singletary's been
Yes.
surprisingly healthy through most of his career. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
um, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I do like these guys as depth pieces, but I think Pierce is going a little bit higher in value than Singletary. And yeah, so if you have to buy one at cost, probably Singletary. I probably agree with that.
Mhm.
Pass catcher wise, now there's a lot of guys at wide receiver. Um, I don't think there's not going to be this many when the season rolls around. They're going to cut a lot of these guys. We'll see who all makes the cut. But I'm going to throw the tight ends in here too. Honestly, I think that Robert Woods and Dalton Schultz are going to be the number 1 and number 2 in targets on this team. Now, Dalton
Agreed.
Schultz is someone that's going very underdrafted, in my opinion. Like, I think he's a
Mhm.
lot cheaper for a potential top 7 type of season. Like, everyone forgets that Dalton Schultz just 2 years ago was the tight end number 6, right, in
Yes.
Dynasty and in fantasy. And I think that he has that potential as well because tight ends and running backs are a rookie quarterback's best friend because they like to get it out there quickly, dump it off to these guys. We've seen Dalton Schultz. He's not the most reliable guy, but he is someone that if you give him a lot of, I could see him being very good because of the volume he's going to get. Robert Woods, again, he's a little bit older, but he's a year out from that ACL tear as well. So he should be back to a little bit of his form, older form, but he should be a young quarterback's best friend right there.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think I think the other guy that I'm excited to see is John Mechie.
Yeah. Yep. So
Yes. Yeah.
Nico Collins, John Mechie, the third, Amari Rogers, Steven Sims, Xavier Hutchinson, Noah Brown. There's a lot of guys here. Nathaniel Dell. Um,
There are.
Now, I would say probably, arguably, John Mechie and Nico Collins are the next 2 guys that are worth even considering in this offense. I think that they're going to
Mhm.
go for a big name wide receiver next year with their first that they do have. I would not
Yes.
be shocked there,
Yeah.
or a big name free agent wide receiver, whoever that could be next year. But yeah, John Mechie, go ahead and break him down a little bit.
Yeah, so he was the wide receiver from Alabama. I think he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think is what he
Leu-
had.
Leukemia, right?
Leukemia, thank you, yes. Um, and then he wasn't able to play last year.
Right.
And he's and it's gonna be like his rookie year. But but when he was at Alabama, he played with Devonta Smith, and
Mm.
he was the two in that offense, and he was electric.
Yeah, he was good. Good.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And I really feel he's going to be set up for success this year, because there's going to be more teams that are, I think, on Robert Woods or Xavier Hutchinson if he plays outside.
Right.
And I really think Mechie can play that slot fairly well and be and be a very good wide receiver.
Yeah, we'll see. When you go through that kind of treatment and everything, I'm sure
Mm,
it might take him a little bit of time to get back to
it
even
will.
football strength, right? We have no
Yeah.
idea. And that's the one risk with John Mechie. Personally, I'd be going for Nico Collins a little bit. Um, he just seems like the other guy that's going to be on the outside, and he's going to have more touchdown opportunity. But yeah, I don't blame anybody. It's a coin flip between these two guys. We have no
It
idea how
is.
they're going to
Yeah.
really perform on the field with Stroud. Now, really quickly, just some brief thoughts on Tank Dell, Nathaniel Dell. He's a small guy. He's 155, and I think he's 5'9", if I remember right, or
Yeah.
5'7". He's very short. He's compact for his size. He's got some of the cleanest releases in this rookie class. Like, he's very, very smooth with that. But I mean, again, he's 155. I just think that even if he got up to 170, you're talking Devonta Smith with half the size, right? At least Devonta Smith is tall, but he still gets banged around by some of these cornerbacks, and that makes me a little nervous. So again, outlier, same with Bryce Young. I am
Mhm.
not betting on them personally. I wish them all the luck in the world and to prove me wrong, but I'm out personally. So that's my thoughts
Yeah.
on Tank Dell. Do you have any last thoughts and we'll wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I like Tank Dell. I think he could be very interesting.
Hmm.
But I think it's gonna take him a little bit to get fantasy relevant.
Right. He could be the slot guy. Like, let's say John Mechie comes out and
He
he's
very well could
not
be.
fully healthy,
Yeah.
right? It's very likely it could be Robert Woods, Nico Collins, and
Mhm.
Tank Dell.
Tank Dell. Yep,
So
absolutely.
yeah, there is definitely some potential upside, but again, personally, I'm just being risk averse with Tank Dell, and I don't fault anybody for going for him, but that's just where I kind of line up. So,
Yeah.
obviously, CJ Stroud liked him. The team liked him enough to take him in the third round. He's got the draft capital that everyone always talks about, right? So, there are those factors to consider as well. But yeah, I'd like to be proven wrong before I kind of start to believe personally.
Yeah.
All right, any last thoughts on the Texans here? Again, I think they're going to
Nope.
be pretty good. I think they're low key going to
Yeah.
be competing for this division. This division's kind of wide open, and I
It
think
is.
anybody can
It
kind of
definitely
take
is.
it. So,
Yeah.
all right. So that said, that is the Houston Texans full 2023 recap. If you like this, please leave a comment down below. Again, I apologize if my voice is a little scratchy. Hopefully it's not, you guys can't tell too much. It's killing me, but hopefully it's not bugging you guys too much. But I will get over this, and by the next time you hear me, it'll probably be a little bit better, hopefully. So, again, if you guys can, leave a subscription on the channel. We're going to be putting out content all off season long, like, review, whatever. Just helps out with the podcast. It gets it out there to more people, and we appreciate all the people that have been checking out all these videos. We've been putting a lot of time into these. I think all in all, for all 32 teams, we're going to have around like 18 hours, give or take,
Mhm.
16 to 18 hours. And it's just a lot of work for us, and we're doing this just for fun. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it too. If you have any feedback or anything, just leave it in a comment or hit us up on Twitter. Again, you can find us on Twitter at TDC_Calvin for myself, or Dale at Dynasty_Dale. And until next time, thank you guys so much for listening, and have a good night.